session, we'll uncover hard lessons learned and practical playbooks to turn scattered pilots into profit engines that truly matter to the board. Our esteemed panelists for this discussion, and I ask you to give each of them a warm welcome to the stage. First up, we have Manav Misra, Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Regions Bank. Next up, we have the SVP and Global CIO at Mead Johnson Nutrition, Rama Donepudi. And our next panelist is Campaign Director of Data Analytics at NYU Langone Health, Aris Noguron. And moderating this session is Asif Gatala, Vice President and Business Unit Head at Tiger Analytics. Let's give them all a warm round of applause to all our speakers and enjoy the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. Okay, before we start, just some housekeeping, right? So if you think that this is the panel that's between you and a delicious lunch, we've saved that honor for the next speaker. So give us your attention. So thanks, everyone. So if you're in this room, you've already dabbled with AI, right? So you've done your POCs, you've done your MVPs, you've seen the value, right? So all the other speakers have talked to you about what's the future, right? But if I were to borrow one statistic that was shared in one of the prior sessions, 1 in 10 POCs actually scale to enterprise value, right? So think about it that way. To put that into context, right? So you go into your favorite coffee shop, every 10 times they serve you coffee, they get it right once, right? Or look around the room. For every 2 tables over here, there's one of you who's got a POC that's scaled to enterprise value, right? When you think about a technology which has a success rate as low as that, you would actually junk that technology, you would junk that coffee shop, right? But yet here we are, sitting together, having traveled thousands of miles to discuss what's the future and how can we leverage this technology. So moving from theory to practice, we've assembled a panel of people whose decisions in their day-to-day jobs impact millions of lives, move billions of dollars, right? So we have a panel comprising of experts from financial services, healthcare, and consumer nutrition, right? Over the next few minutes, we want to talk through like how they've been successful in not just building successful POCs, but then scaling it to enterprise value, right? So with that, Rama, I'm gonna start you off. Maybe we'll anchor to small wins, right? So getting as specific as you can, right? I know, again, you're always experimenting with multiple POCs, you're experimenting with multiple things that are going on simultaneously. So if you do want to just kick us off with something tangible, real, where you were able to deliver a successful POC, how you measured value, and then what it took to realize the value from AI. So Rama, do you want to get us started?
I think first of all, good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me here. As Sanjay mentioned earlier, right, so there is, you got to act fast and learn fast. So we started our POCs. There is no jumping off the POCs directly getting into production scale. We had our failures. In 23, we started fast. Again, being in CPG, we have a ton of solid data. We're playing with the data a lot. So we jumped on these POCs early in the stage. We got our lessons learned. And at the end of 24, where we figured out which ones are actually really bringing the value, and then we started scaling the enterprise way. For me, is that it's just you have to start fast. There is no, hey, skip the POCs, find that magic enterprise scale one, jumping into it. It's not possible because I think Anuj or somebody mentioned that the context is also, context is king, right? So specific to our context, our industry or our company with our data to make that particular use case really valuable, you got to go through that process. How quickly you get to that value one is the key. I think we had our share of failures before we got into the ones. So.
Yeah. Thanks, Rama. Manav, maybe I'd move to you, right? So any specific, again, like I said, we want to anchor it to small wins before we go to the big scale, right? So something small that you conceptualized, how were you able to realize the value of it and showcase the value of AI to your board and C-suite, right? So you want to kick us off with that?
Yeah, for us, I don't know if this is a huge problem, right? So yes, we experiment, but then what we do is we build out solid business cases and then get sponsorship from a particular business leader. We know that there is buy-in. I actually have them put skin in the game. I have them kind of fund some resources or put in some money for some tools so that it's not something that gets put on the shelf. So we've had a lot of success. We also take a very product-centered mindset to all the work that we do. So we build out end-to-end software products that solve a problem for the business. That said, I'll give you an example of something that took us a lot longer to get to scale. We finally did get to scale, but this was a product we built out for our branches where it helped them understand their small business customers and meet the needs of those customers well. So there were predictive models underneath. There was a lot of data that drove the product. We had a change of leadership in that consumer bank area. And even though our pilot was in all of Texas and it was showing great promise, the new leader wanted to reset everything, make sure that she had the right pieces in the branches. She also wanted to make sure that everyone was trained on the product before we rolled it out fully. She wanted to make sure that there was rationalization of all the other tools that they were using. So it took us a year to kind of reset and then get all that buy-in again. Mm-hmm. And then we did the rollout in a phased manner, and it's been a huge success in the branches there. So it's really important to get that business buy-in and then keep that business buy-in.
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting. And just the two remarks that we've heard so far, there's like different approaches we've taken, right? Rama mentioned about how quick to getting off the blocks, trying multiple different things, to Manav talking about how being deliberate and choosing the right ones to bet on, right? Interesting. Arish, maybe the same question to you. Any POCs that come to mind immediately where you were able to clearly define a use case where you were confident that you would be able to showcase value?
Yeah, absolutely. And good morning, everyone. Thank you for your time. So I sit in the intersection between philanthropy and clinical services. And so in philanthropy, one give could revolutionize healthcare. And so we have a very large EMR, electronic medical database. And to look at our patient pool and understanding the philanthropic capability in there is it's a very large problem. And so leveraging ML and introductory AI has been really helpful to review our patient population for any opportunities in the philanthropic space. And even just one philanthropic space could generate revenue, or even just philanthropic revenue above $1 million, $100 million. So it was a quick POC where we leveraged simple ML to identify these high probability patients that were able to do a grateful patient program, who are very thankful for their care and have provided a very big thank you to our organization. So very large impact in both philanthropic and financial standards.
Yeah. Thank you. So that's helpful. I mean, at least now where we've established with this panel so far is likely where every one of you is, right? So you've dabbled with proof of concepts, you know the power of AI, and then you're talking about scale. But that's where the rubber hits the road and cracks start to develop and things sometimes start falling apart, right? So again, it could be investing in the right technology or having the right people or the organizational buy-in, the funding, and all of those different things need to come together, right? So maybe Arish, I'll start with you, right? Like, do you want to talk about, like, in your opinion, what are some of the things that get in the way, and how would you plan to, like, once you have a successful proof of concept, right? How do you scale to create enterprise-wide impact, right? So how do you plan for it? How do you execute it? And what are the guardrails you have in place to make sure that you realize the benefit that you would like?
So in the healthcare space, your biggest barrier there's a lot of passion there. So on the provider healthcare front, your physicians, they're very passionate about their care. And so accessibility to their time, just being flexible, and as the recent panelist said, was if you're okay testing small but failing fast, that is a huge approach that we take. Some of the big barriers that we run into is just We try to approach it diplomatically. We want to include all the stakeholders, but sometimes that inherently causes a challenge.
Right.
So if you don't include everyone, people feel that they need to put their input, and especially on the provider side. So what we approach it is in small, again, these small tests of change where we show success in small avenues. But it's really, even just the AI in the clinical space, there's a lot of reservation behind it because it's a mixture of math versus art. So having to sell AI, especially at the human healthcare level, is a difficult challenge. So we need all your brains to kind of like sell it to us in a way that is helpful to a clinical approach.
Right. Manav, maybe I'll move to you, right? I mean, you operate in a highly regulated industry, right? So not everything that could happen in, like, let's say, CPG or retail is easily accessible to you, right? So from that perspective, at every stage, you have guardrails, right? So do you want to just talk us through your process in terms of, like, right from identifying the candidates to how do you double down on ones that show promise, and then how do you scale, right? Again, scale for you is across markets, across multiple product lines, right? So just walk us through your process, right? How do you put your guardrails in place?
Yeah, so yes, we're highly regulated, but more importantly than that, the data that we have and the use of that data is extremely sensitive, as you can well imagine. That even if we had no regulators, we'd still be concerned about the risk associated with what we're doing, and make sure that we're protecting our customers broadly. So it does slow us down somewhat, but at the same time, I think banking overall has been one of the leaders in terms of using machine learning initially, but then all the way to now generative AI, where banks like JP Morgan Chase, Citi, Bank of New York, and even us are moving forward with that. So we have to balance that out. By the way, interesting point here that 3 days ago, the Federal Reserve had a conference in DC focused on bank capital, so highly technical, regulatory concern about making sure that banks have the right amount of capital. The keynote fireside chat was with Sam Altman, who flew in for that, and the Fed was asking him, how do you advise banks to innovate further with AI? So even though we're highly regulated, even our regulators are thinking about how we get banks to innovate and grow. So balancing those risks are important, but then we do manage to move pretty fast, and as an industry, we're pretty far along. And as a bank, we've deployed tens of AI-based products across the bank, which are delivering huge value to our businesses, and it's seen as a clear differentiator for our leadership team. Our CEO is highly behind this. And then with that, we move pretty fast to get things to scale.
And from your perspective, Manav, do you think that the ecosystem is a little different when you're thinking about use cases and, let's say, risk management versus like more consumer facing in terms of like customer acquisitions and retentions and marketing and all of those areas, right? So do you think the degrees of freedom that you have in your role are a little different across these two, or generally it's the same?
No, so there are different use cases in risk versus, so I call them the defensive uses of data and analytics versus the offensive uses of data and analytics. But that said, I think we look at them all as what value they're driving to the bank. That value could be in the form of increased revenues, and, efficiencies, etc., or it could be guarding our customers better and so on. So examples of the defensive uses, we use data and analytics very heavily in fraud protection, for instance. And that's we've got massive deployments across the whole bank around that, and that's a major risk mitigant for us. So we deploy both defensive as well as offensive products to the bank, and it's been very successful.
Thanks. Rama, I know again in your role, sometimes it gets lost that Mead Johnson is quite regulated as well, right? Because you're in pediatric nutrition. Sometimes Mead Johnson would probably get viewed as a CPG company, but then you're in a very highly regulated product yourself, right? So how do you navigate around the constraints that you have to deal with, but on the other hand, you have to drive innovation, right? So you want to talk us through your process and your thinking, how you, like, right from identifying the candidates to your thought process to how you scale the impact of AI across your product lines.
Yeah. So the one thing which we really cracked and scaled it to the enterprise-wide is that, as you rightly mentioned, we also have a lot of regulation, same like pharma. But our challenge is that we go directly to consumers as well, and in some countries it's regulated by WHO, World Health Organization. How do you approach moms for your infant formula and others? Our one specific use case I would like to bring is if you want to say any claim or any off-label thing we do, it needs to be approved by legal, regulatory, everybody in the chain to approve that. And being in a CPG/FMCG, that you got to turn around quickly and what campaign is working and what is not working, right? I think this process is directly impact our top line and how quickly you basically reach out in these, either as e-commerce on Amazon or in the retails. So our pure Gen AI, it's not productivity, it's mainly focusing on how much more campaigns you can run, avoiding like 5 to 10 days of approvals from legal, regulatory and all, and through, again, training the model on all that previous approvals and context, what can we say, what words we can say, what's not, all of that. This is one of the breakthrough for our enterprise-wide. Right? Finding these kind of things, this is a true Gen AI, but a top-line growth impact.
Right.
Normally when we do Gen AI, yes, it saved few hours of an FTE. Can we get the FTE reduction? We never ever get those kind of things. We had our experience in our automations in the past. You save a few hours, they never give up on FTE. But this one we say, okay, don't go after FTE, but go after your campaigns. You can run 2,000 versus now 3,000 campaigns with this. So this is how we changed the whole ROI game of this.
Yeah. So before we move on to the next question, right? So one of the challenges I have thrown to the panel is, can we get by the first 15 minutes without using the word agents, right? And we've done a great job. We're past the halfway mark, right? But again, I'm gonna do maybe one round, we'll talk about that, right? Like, I know Gen AI, agentic AI, we've talked about it a lot in the first half of this, the first 3 sessions that we had, right? Is there anything particularly about these technologies that you're most excited about, right? Again, to the extent that, we're getting into the future, the vision and all of that, right? To the extent that you can share, is there anything that you're most excited about where you're looking to try out these technologies in a specific use cases in your day-to-day, right? So maybe Aris, I would start with you.
Yeah, I'm sure all of us have dealt with this as patients at one point in our lives, but the interaction between a healthcare system and an insurance space and the authorizations for specific procedures or imaging or so forth. So as internally, we're looking to build an agentic AI to communicate with the insurance side of things. So instead of having that human-to-human takes time interface that will really delay care, we're hoping to build the efficiencies there. So when we interact with insurance companies, it is more of like a matter of seconds and a matter of weeks. And this is time in healthcare that you are missing to get that image, to get that surgery. And so we're very early in the development, but these are the things that we're hoping to achieve, is the interaction between our healthcare system and really the administrative side of healthcare. So.
Thanks. Rama, maybe the same question to you. Any specific use cases that come to mind where you think these technologies would be highly
more than excited, I'm actually a little concerned too with this whole agentic AI, right? My CHRO thinks these are all the free FTEs. You create these so that you can reduce your FTEs and then there's no cost. Again, being a CIO, my challenge, even with what we faced in the past, we created a lot of bots in the past, you remember? But who's going to go back and clean up all these bots? Like, if you make it easy to build, many a times, you go and build many of them, and then afterwards, somebody has to make the hygiene of these things, right? So make sure you clean it up and then repurpose or do something. Similarly, my challenge with this agents being proposed by a lot of my big providers. My Salesforce guys are giving these agents from the agentic Force, right? Even they're thinking of changing their company name from Salesforce to Agent Force. So everybody from SAP and everybody is coming up with this thing. When I look at from where you are from the CIO, and then how do you run this with all and trying to connect. I think there's this, the Fibble AI where we see that visibility, the observability is one of the key. I would actually look at it, how we are building it. And there are some of these products they're actually making, hey, your business users can create these agents. Whether I'm sure Genpact is going to come back with your finance, GBS guys can create their own agents left and right. I think how do we govern all of these? I think that's my biggest concern than excitement, to be honest. As a CIO, if you look at it from the CIO point of view.
So the whole agent lifecycle management, right? I mean, you want to put that before it becomes a problem. You want to make sure that you have the guardrails in place,
Yes,
right?
yes.
All right. Manav, the same thing to you. Any specific use cases that you're most excited about, the power that agentic AI unlocks?
Well, I'll take the contrary view to that. Yes, we're doing all the standard kind of use cases about code generation and knowledge summarization and so on and so forth. Knowledge assistance and content summarization, all of that. But what I'd like to get to is, in essence, everyone at the bank has access to generative AI tools with the right guardrails, right? So we have the right constraints, we have the right monitoring, we have the, that they can't go off and blow things up. But see what they come up with. And, if you have somebody in our corporate banking group that thinks of a problem that they face with on a regular basis and they come up with a solution around it, I'd be really excited, assuming it's safe and it's, it's done right. So as an example, so every year we have an annual data analytics discovery day. Mm-hmm. And most of the time it's my team and my partners that come in and present all the things we've built out. This year we're going to be doing a competition of the best generative AI solution across the bank that somebody has come up with. Mm-hmm. And they come and demo it on stage and show what they've been able to do. I would really want to get people to think about this, because this is going to be a transformative technology and it will change almost every job at the bank, certainly, but beyond.
Right. So maybe, Rama, I'll just tap onto that one, right? I mean, I know in Mead Johnson, the top of the funnel ideas has never been a problem, right? So there's always been a backlog of ideas where people are like overflowing with ideas where they feel like AI could help them, right? But it's the filtering criteria that you've tightly controlled, right? But then are you excited about the possibilities that this technology opens in terms of more of those ideas being able to come down the filter, and then the filtering just moving further down, that like the gating is not at the POC, the gating is not the MVP, but then once you've started to see the value, now you're applying a gating criteria much lower down the funnel. Is that something that you're thinking about?
I think you're spot on that one, right? I think what I see is here in this transformation of this whole tech evolution, executive alignment is not a challenge. Actually, it's over-alignment is a challenge. I think we're trying to educate them. Even our C-suite and board, they think there's a lot can be done with AI, and it could be a great potential if we jump fast into it, and there's so many use cases coming. It's actually, our team is actually the one, and after many years, we are trying to push back the work. They are even bringing the money. It's not about the budgeting also, right? They're bringing with the money, but the expectations on the ROI is huge. Yeah. My chief medical officer comes from Harvard. We recently hired from Harvard as a chief medical officer for us. He came, and then he's like, Rama, from the R&D perspective, we are full on board with AI. We are planning to reduce 25% of our CFC next year. Mm-hmm. Next year, he's talking about. Wow. It's first of all, you look at our 50 years of data, which is still a lot of it is not even documented, not digitized data we have from clinical trials from 50 years back. So the possibility of underlying what's needed, that's the challenge. We are looking at pushing back on use cases, pushing back and then trying to go in, and we don't have the capacity to filter all of that. use cases to find that needle in the haystack kind of situation.
Right. So it sounds like from funding being the bottleneck to ideas being the bottleneck, it's shifted to like now prioritizing the ones that need to see the light of day, right? So, and that probably also contributes to the problem, right? If you say like 1 in 10 ideas has a successful enterprise-wide implementation, probably the top of the funnel, the filtering is not what it needs to be as well, right? So they're finding their way down. Okay, so at least just going back to you, right? So from an inward-focused lens, shifting outwards now, right? So again, at least now over the last few minutes, it's established that each one of you has seen success not just in POCs, but in your ability to scale and create enterprise-wide impact as well, right? So some of us in the audience over here, like who've had successful proof of concepts with AI, but they're struggling to unlock the enterprise-wide potential, right? So do you have any advice or like any, I mean, if you would, I mean, obviously there's no one thing that can get it all right, but then if you were to pick one thing where like this is where you struggled more or this is where things flipped in your personal journey, right? So you want to just talk us through what that one thing would be?
Absolutely. Start early. There's a lot of fear that's happening right now, especially really across all of our organization. They are looking at AI as a threat, even at the clinical state. So if you start early and engage them not as like a generic educational format, but really small teams of engaging what AI could do, how it could help, it really goes a long way. I will use a use case on the radiology front. You know, there's a lot of power on the imaging side where you could early diagnose cancer or other different disease states. So of course the initial human response is to be like, oh my gosh, this is going to take, you know, my diagnostic capability. But in reality, it really supports the clinical decision making. And so if you start early and engage your clinical teams, and even people who are interfacing with AI as much, you just small, intimate groups. I know it does take a little bit more time, but it really does engage people. And then they become your innovative source. It's like, hey, I used to do this, and now I'm able to leverage AI. And now we have, similar to yourself, we have an overwhelming amount of ideas, and we're starting to have to push back. So,
got it. Mm-hmm. So early buy-in, getting people on the board, and then
small and intimate approach, for sure.
All right, same question to you, Rama. Like any one piece of advice that you would have, like this has led to things turning over?
For us, it's right partner ecosystem because the amount of, the pace it's going on, there is no way from internal we can catch up with that kind of skill sets to drive some of it. We always look for the right partners who can bring that speed to us.
Got it.
Right? I mean, in the past, we have to learn and then we have to evolve and then build solid internal capabilities to drive some of these things. But at this pace, how quickly we can tap into the partner's knowledge, like copy whatever that is working in other companies to bring it here through our partner ecosystem. My biggest bet is on my partners this time in this transformation, basically, from the AI.
Interesting. So from getting all stakeholders on board early to like leveraging your partners. Manav, anything from you? Like any one piece of advice?
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with everything that was said over here. There's just a lot of energy, a lot of excitement about this. And then the big difference with this wave is that your leaders are actually using these technologies on their personal devices already. So our CFO is out there and he's like, so he's coming back and saying, why can't we do this? So prioritization, risk assessments quickly, guarding those and coming up with patterns that you can accelerate delivery based on those patterns is the way to go.
That could actually be a double-edged sword, right? If your CFO is more excited and more optimistic about AI than you are. So maybe just a quick show of hands, right? Would it be fair to say that your C-suite and your board is more optimistic about AI today than you are? Just agree, disagree. Maybe thumbs up, thumbs down?
No, I agree. They are more excited than me, actually.
Is that a common thing as well, Manav? Would you agree?
I wouldn't agree with that statement particularly. They are very excited, but I'm even more excited. So
okay. All right, and then so this is the age-old problem, right? Like we've had this with IT and we've had this with everything, right? So again, just quick, maybe a word or a sentence, right? So where does the AI roadmap and the AI vision reside? Does it reside with an IT organization or a central AI organization? Does it reside with a business? I mean, obviously, all of these are key stakeholders to make it successful, right? Maybe I'll start with you, Manav. Short answer. I know everybody has an opinion, but
There's a big role for the central team, my team, for instance. But I also want to make sure that and it's not just like analytics teams in each of the business units, but everyone being able to produce something and use it.
Manav, Rama.
I think it's not like who drives. I would say as a functions, including technology, AI should be embedded in everybody's roadmaps. Even within my own function, finance own function, it should be completely embedded into how we do our function, period. It's not like it's driven by this function versus that. So that's how I look at it.
Harish, your point of view?
Yeah, I agree with what you just said. It's really at the beginning of onboarding. It is part of your really employee roadmap of how you're going to develop. It's not when it's coming. It's not if it's coming. It's when it's coming. And so, like, really implement it into your onboarding and educational programs.
All right. Maybe one last question from me, and then we'll see if there's any questions from the audience. Right. So, one sentence, and there's agree, disagree, thumbs up or down. Right. The future of AI is getting comfortable with mathematical models that you don't fully comprehend. Agree or disagree? Thumbs up, thumbs down.
I agree.
Yeah?
I agree.
All right. So it looks like we're on time, so I'll have to, some of the questions I see hands going up, but then these gentlemen are going to be off stage soon. But then thanks so much, Manav, Rama, and Aris. Like we aligned on already, right? So it looks like everybody's had success with AI. Scaling it is not just about technology or people, but then it's a combination of various factors, starting right from vision all the way through to execution, and then having the right guardrails in place. And then, of course, change management is a big piece as well. Thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom. And ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause to the panel as they step off stage. Thank you.